Well, I think it's time for you to have your lysergic acid. Drink this down, and we'll be back after a while. And
I can see everything in color. Everything.
100 gamma of LSD 25.
I've never seen such infinite beauty in my life.
Let's kick off a series of videos that I was not at all planning on putting out. That's right, I'm here to talk about How to Change Your Mind, the new Netflix documentary series. And today we will be diving into the first episode, all about LSD. Now, like I mentioned, I was not planning on making a video series about this, but enough people asked me what my opinion was and if I plan to put anything out about it, so I figured, okay, I'll just go ahead and do it. Side note, because this is going to be very chill, very low-key, this video was unplanned, so it will not be hyper-edited. This video is not going to include any of my typical editing, so that I could put these out in time to go to Burning Man and just share my thoughts with y'all.
The following video is made for the purpose of education and harm reduction. We are not promoting the use, procurement, or possession of any plant medicine or substance. We encourage everyone to do further research and prioritize safety.
So yeah, that's what we'll be getting into today. And where are my manners? Hello, I am Chrysanthus. If you are new here, welcome. We are a realm dedicated to psychedelics and sacred plant medicine, all about demystifying and destigmatizing the trip. If you get a kick out of this video today, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're working our way towards 10,000 subs, and you can connect with the realm on Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon at Chrysanthus. First question, did you guys watch this yet? Did you see the pilot episode LSD? If so, comment your thoughts below. Let me know what you thought about it. I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts, which are, more positive than I thought they might be. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be getting into the criticism of How to Change Your Mind. So please get your cup of tea ready because I will be spilling mine. Delicious. Okay, How to Change Your Mind is finally here. Let's get into it. So if you have checked out my channel, you have probably heard me recommend Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. I think, and I still think, that it is a solid, accessible starter book for anyone who is thinking about dipping their toes into the plant medicine psychedelic realm, even so far as microdosing. I listened to it on audiobook, and the fact that it's available on audiobook, chef's kiss. This book mostly focused on psilocybin mushrooms. So I love that the series expanded it to also include LSD, MDMA, and mescaline. All of these substances which I have personal lived experience with, so it was great to be able to see other folks' experiences with it and also how it's helped other people in ways that I wasn't hip to the helpfulness. I didn't know that these medicines could help folks to the extent. I focus on these medicines on my channel, like even I was surprised by the extent in which people were helped by these medicines. The LSD episode started out with tobacco. I'm just gonna be reading some notes on my computer. It started out with tobacco. I thought that was a great idea. Most people are way more familiar with tobacco than they are familiar with mushrooms, LSD, mescaline, MDMA, etc. Starting at a place of familiarity and kind of flipping that upside down, like this thing that you've been told was evil and has an evil industry connected to it. You've been told your entire life that tobacco is the devil. Whoop! It's actually a sacred earth medicine that we call grandfather. So kind of hopping into that grandfather medicine, starting out with that, I think is a great idea. If you haven't checked out our Rape series on this channel, please do. We did it with the Ancestor Project. And a funny note I wrote was just like, watching how they edited it with the lightning and the music, it definitely made me want to sit with some rape. I was like, where is my rape? They just made that experience seem so delicious. I really dug that they were bringing attention to the fact that tobacco isn't just a killer, and it has healing qualities, and it wasn't always used in the somewhat malicious way it's used now that we see in mostly like cigarettes and tobacco products. So yeah, I thought that the starting out and not immediately hopping into psychedelics was solid and a pretty accessible way to go. Okay, so then they start talking about LSD, right? So sometimes they refer to it as LSD and sometimes they refer to it as acid. I had a small note here, which is that is really actually very cultural, and in my experience, LSD and acid are not interchangeable and are not always the same thing. Now, if you are looking for LSD, you are looking for the lysergic acid, like the pure LSD. If you are looking for any of your cousins' research chemicals, if you are a little bit less picky and a little bit more living on the edge, I don't know how to put that respectfully, but then you would refer to acid, meaning you're not necessarily looking for pure LSD. Now, I've seen this used against people, right? Because I've seen people sold acid and they assumed that it was in good faith. They assumed that they were getting LSD, but the person sold them some kind of street research chemical that was not a good time. And the person knew that it wasn't LSD. And the person said, oh, well, I didn't say it was LSD. I just said it was acid. So just if you're watching this, please be careful. If we're looking for LSD, let's ask for LSD, right? If I'm looking for LSD, right, let me ask for LSD. If we're looking for research chemicals, which I don't know why we necessarily would be, but then we could say acid. There aren't so many solid tests for research chemicals. I mean, you can test to make sure it's not cut with things. But yes, please be careful of using these words interchangeably. It can actually linguistically get you into a bit of a pickle, and I've seen that before. Hopefully, if you are sourcing this medicine, you are doing so within a trustworthy community that wouldn't try to pull any tricks over your head like that, but I've seen it happen and it's not good. So anyways, that was a tangent. The 50s research, I loved them using the videos of that. I'd say check out the LSD housewife videos, check out the artist interviews.
Well, I think it's time for you to have your lysergic acid. Drink this down, and we'll be back after a while and see how you're doing. Well, tell me.
Well, I just couldn't. I couldn't possibly tell you. It's here. Can't you feel it?
Colorless, tasteless. It contains 100 gamma of LSD 25.
Everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules and the dimensions and all the prisms and the rays. I've never seen such infinite beauty in my life.
These are some of my favorite things to just watch on YouTube that are a really incredible piece of psychedelic history. And that is history that you can excavate yourself. I'd never seen that Albert Hoffman footage before, so that was really cool to just see him talking and to hear all of this just directly from him. They went a little bit into Bicycle Day, but I don't think they mentioned what Bicycle Day is and how it's celebrated. So anywho, if you guys are here and you don't know what Bicycle Day is, it's a psychedelic holiday on April 19th that we celebrate in celebration of the bicycle ride that y'all saw in the documentary. So I loved the breathing and warping visuals in that Bicycle Day scene. I thought those were really dope. Some of the warping was obviously a little bit exaggerated, but then the flower and bug visualizers, I really dug those. You do see with a set of new eyes, especially after that come down, and I feel like that was really amazing to see and expressed very well in the flower and bug visualizers. I loved that they talked about the link between LSD and sobriety. If you're not aware or you haven't seen this video yet, I made a video about it, but LSD told me to stop drinking alcohol one day at the beach. I was sitting with LSD and she was just like, girl, quit it. And I never had a huge drinking problem, anything like that, but my life has so much improved since making that decision a few years ago to go alcohol sober. I've heard so many similar stories from folks that LSD also told them to drop the bottle. So I thought it was really cool that they talked about that link, because from my own personal experience, that link is very real. So then they got into a bunch of Timothy Leary stuff, and I'm pretty anti turn on, tune in, drop out. To me, that's not my truth. I think that integration should never look like dropping out. You know, I think that integration looks like dropping out in an individualist kind of colonized perspective of integration, but I think integration always eventually involves dropping back in, you know, bringing the trip back in to reality, to life, to family. You know, one of the reasons I personally sit with psychedelics is to improve my relationship to myself, as well as how I relate to others, just make everybody's life around me a little bit easier. And to me, when you drop out, when you just like completely peace out, there's not really a way to bring your trip back into reality. And plant medicine and psychedelics have just historically never been used for the purpose of dropping out of society. When I hear people say that, it's honestly like a red flag to me that that person is an individualist, you know, that that person does not have a communal mindset, communal wants, etc., etc. Like, sure, we all need some time to drop out every so often, every once in a while, take those mental health days, all that kind of stuff. But the way it was pitched back in that day has just never sat right with me. It always kind of seemed like it was a really easy solution to all of the woes in your life, sort of kind of how just like people use psychedelics to run away from their thoughts, their mistakes, their lived experiences, all that kind of stuff, rather than integrate. But yeah, I really dig Ram Dass. What I'm talking about is like strictly Timothy Leary. We're talking about this part of the documentary, but I do think that the turn on, tune in, drop out just completely represents a colonizer's mentality, and that's like what I put on here. I literally typed out colonizer's mentality. Americans really ruin things for the rest of the world. That's also what I wrote down. We really ruin things for the rest of the world. Psychedelic research was taking off the rest of the world, and we really said yeet. Yeah, this is why the world can't have nice things. It's because of us. It's because of us, and all of the episodes really clearly pointed at that so gracefully. The war on drugs, all this kind of stuff. The war on drugs and the war on plant medicine specifically is really like the war on anti-depression. It really is like the war on being able to find healthy solutions for your own mental health issues. Tomatoes, 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 0 out of 10. So I wrote down that I'd like to go to Switzerland. Anybody have the hookup? Drop a comment and do an LSD birthplace series. I think that would be absolutely sick to like film in Switzerland and show y'all where LSD came from. I also feel the same way about going to Oaxaca and doing a mushroom birthplace series. I don't have the resources to do that right now, so I'm just putting it out into the ether with the hopes that one day somebody will come across one of these videos where I'm just talking like this. Who does have the resources? Message me on my website. I appreciate dropping like the microdose information in the first episode, because even if someone only watches the first episode, that is an incredible starting place for someone who is new to psychedelics and plant medicine. And it's a place where people often ask me like, oh, well, where do I even get started? And it's like, microdosing. You can get started with microdosing even before you get started with small doses. Yeah, I feel like it's a really safe and accessible place for viewers to start their own journey, especially if they don't watch the rest of the series, they only watch this first episode. They know that microdosing exists and it's there for them as a potential resource. Now let's get into the tea. Okay, there has been criticism of this series coming out from the Fireside Project. If y'all are not familiar with Fireside Project, they are a psychedelic peer support resource line where basically you can call in and they have volunteers who can help you if you are experiencing a challenging trip especially. But they also exist as a resource for several different parts of the psychedelic experience, including integrations. So I'd highly recommend that y'all check out the Fireside Project. But my friend was telling me the other day that apparently they get calls from so many people who read Michael Pollan's book, who then go off the deep end and have a really challenging, impossible trip, and then they have to call the Fireside Project. And when they're asked like, oh, wait, why are you doing this many mushrooms? What's going on? What's happening? They're just like, I read Michael Pollan's book and now I think I'm gonna die. And like, apparently a lot of people are picking up Michael Pollan's book and having an unsafe time with psychedelics. That is a criticism that I have seen of the book. So I recently watched a video entitled Discussing Harm Reduction in the Wake of Netflix's docuseries How to Change Your Mind with the Fireside Project, and they kind of go a little bit into what I mentioned, not specifically, but kind of some of their thoughts around harm reduction. And they brought this to my attention, which I totally didn't consider, but the series only highlights the best case scenarios. So the series only highlights like people whose lives were changed and they were healed forever and they were cured. But it's estimated that about 1% of folks who take psychedelics may end up in the emergency room, right? So not really touching upon the power of psychedelics for both the good and the challenging. Presented them in an uneven way, and I think that's a totally valid criticism of How to Change Your Mind. Some people have LSD trips that they don't come back from. And I think being a responsible advocate of the medicine is finding the balance between being able to say that and also being able to express the most likely case scenario, you know? So like the worst possible case scenario and also the most common case scenario. I know for me, LSD has been extremely helpful in my life. I haven't had too many super challenging experiences to the degree that like I would need some kind of peer support line, but I talk about this in my Why You Shouldn't Trip Alone video. I have heard from people, and I do know people who have risked their lives sitting with LSD. So I think that that's also super important to talk about. Also, 1% of folks, that is a lot of people who might end up in the emergency room. I know that's not maybe the official number, that's the estimated number, but still, that's even more than I thought. So yeah, my thoughts on this criticism is, one, did these people read the entire book? Come on, like, I'm wondering if they read the entire book all the way through, or they read to chapter 2 and said, great, I'm gonna do hellish rooms, and got themselves into trouble, which to me, I read the entire book, as I mentioned. I don't recall him ever recommending people start at like 4 or 5 grams, doing a large dose, anything like that. But I guess the issue with these resources, including my resources, is people can just watch the first 5 minutes of my video and not stick around for the rest of like all of the safety. I totally agree with the projecting psychedelics and LSD in particular as if it's infallible and as if it only produces best case scenarios. But I am additionally skeptical of the people who are reading this book, doing massive doses, and calling into Fireside Project, because one, like I always tell people on this channel, do not just listen to what I have to say, do further research, consult medical professionals. This is not the only place to get your information before you journey. Neither is Michael Pollan's book, you know? So anyone who has not adequately prepared themselves for the power of mushrooms and the potential of having a really challenging experience needs to, before just diving into the deep end of the pool. So yeah, if you've only read one book or only watched one channel, like get into community. Find your local psychedelic community or find an online community of folks in psychedelic societies. Do not just hop into this without community. Again, that comes from a very individualistic place of us thinking like, okay, I've read this book, I got it, I'm ready to go. Y'all, LSD can be challenging. Psilocybin can be challenging. It requires so much reverence for this medicine, and reverence not necessarily from a place of fear, but from a place of respect. Let's keep the Fireside support line not so busy in terms of what we can do preventatively. You know, we can't prevent everything, but in terms of what we can do preventatively, 1 gram for a starter dose, please y'all, I am begging you. We have so much time to work your way up from there, but yes, people want to have a big dose for their first dose, and if you're not in a research study or in a controlled environment with a medicine practitioner, all that kind of stuff, you have a much higher chance of having an adverse experience. And I talk about that a lot on the channel. They talk about set and setting, but you know, that's not all you need. You need a lot more, including community. But yeah, thanks so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel. That's about gonna wrap it up for LSD. I have merch available on my thread list, so please be sure to check that out. I also have a new Patreon page that I just soft launched. Shout out to my 7 Patreons at this point, I think it is. And of course, as always, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Chrysanthilus. Much love to y'all. Remember to keep them starter doses low, and remember to just get hella opinions, including ones that contradict mine. Like, get many, many, many opinions if you're hopping into this world. Do further research. I mean, works cited, an entire bibliography of sources. And most importantly, don't forget to keep it trippy.